Joe Ressinell with the front line of Joe and Joe. Once again, let us go into the breach. Pope Francis recently made some statements regarding Vatican II. He said it was a renewal of the church in tune with the signs of the times. A couple things to note. First and foremost, do you or do you not accept the council as legitimate? And do you or do you not accept the documents as legitimate? That's, I think, the first thing to establish before we even go on to the comments themselves, because the church does. Let me repeat that. The Universal Catholic Church accepts Vatican II as an official council and the documents as official documents. I think we have to establish that first and foremost. Now, have those documents in the council been implemented the way they were supposed to? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What we have seen since is the spirit of Vatican II. You see, I prescribe to the school of thought of Benedict XVI. He believed in what is commonly referred to as the reform of the reform. Many people even reject that. They reject that school of thought. Well, I go along with that, and I believe Pope Benedict XVI will become a saint, and he will also become a doctor of the church. I don't think we've seen the documents basically implemented as they were intended to. And in time, we probably will, with God's grace and with God's providence. But ultimately, I think the question we have to ask ourselves as Catholics, do you accept the council? And do you accept the documents as they're written, not as they were implemented? Because sadly, the spirit of Vatican II has not bore good fruit. But I would contest that that is not what's in the documents. You see, I think people confuse the two. And here's another thing, which I think goes on in our church, particularly in Catholic social media. We have no authority. I have no authority, nor do you. But the church does. And when you start taking on authority on yourself and making statements saying basically like, the documents aren't valid, the council isn't valid, says who? Who are you? The church has made a statement, and until it doesn't, that's the way it is. You see, too many people, like I said, I think they're making statements and putting forth direction based upon no authority whatsoever. Ultimately, the problem with Vatican II and the documents isn't the documents themselves. It was a lack of obedience of both the clerics and the Catholics. And we still see that lack of obedience today. Ultimately, God was obedient to the Father, and his mother was obedient to the Son. We have to be obedient to the church, and in time, it will all be worked out. But here's another thing that people have to remember. You have no authority, and neither do I. The church does. The church is a benevolent dictatorship. It's not a democracy. And ultimately, when the church makes a statement, when the church has a council, when the church crafts a document, they should be listened to. And sadly, in this case, they were not. And as a result, they have not bore fruit. And as a result, it has caused confusion and, frankly, led many people astray. God is in charge. He will right the ship. Remain a faithful son of the church. That requires obedience and trust that once again, God will right the ship.